is, how comfortable are you when the pressure's on saying the truth? That it's one thing to be comfortable when things are good and everything's easy, but when things are tough, this is a basic of leadership that needs to be developed, is your sense of freedom. And guess what? You may be fabulous at it, and the situation changes. You get a different boss, you get a higher level role, and you start over, because that's how basics work. If I'm Tiger Woods and I get in trouble, the next thing you'll read in the paper is he's off practicing his swing. This is like practicing your swing. It changes in different courses. And when you're in a different course and it changes, are you aware when you're holding back? Do you know why? Do you know what it is about the personality that you're interacting with that triggers this fear in you? You need to be very self-aware, and then you need to be aware for the people that you support, because you've got to coach them. Second category is managing confusion. Do you know how important the whole managing confusion thing is for the development of trust? A lot of trust isn't about whether that person never makes a mistake. People make mistakes. Trust is a gut level feeling we have or we don't have. Often it is determined by how authentic the person is. How real is that person, and so how predictable is that person in their realness. So, managing confusion, it starts with engagement. We needed to get this CEO out and engaged. If you've got issues in your organization, your CEO, you, everybody needs to be figuring out how to have communication within the organization. We'll get to power games too. Responsiveness, how responsive are you to what you find? And last, direction. By that, I mean personal direction. Does everybody in here know one word that applies to themselves that describes your essence? So think of a word, and if you don't, you need to go find it, because within that is your authenticity. And what you'll find is a lot of your leaders that waffle, and that one day they're in one path and the next day they're not on that path, they're gone somewhere else. They don't know who they are at the most fundamental level. If I'm a nurturer, my leadership style should be about nurturing, and I will create a nurturing organization. If I'm decisive, I will create a decisive organization, if I'm consistent. But if I'm all over the place because I don't really know what I am or who I am or what my contribution is, then I will mess it up. It starts with balance. Now, what I mean by balance in this case is not necessarily work-life balance, although that certainly is a contributing factor. But one of the first things I have to do with almost every client that comes to me is talk them off the schedules. They are so completely stretched with their schedules that they can't possibly be at optimal performance. It doesn't exist with the schedules that they have. But the reason they have those schedules is they think they cannot say no. That goes back up to freedom. Remember freedom? They don't know how to take their calendar and make it their calendar instead of everybody else's calendar. It's a really key piece in terms of work-life balance affecting balance, but the real issue between whether someone has balance or not is how many life crises they've been through. How many of you have been through a real life crisis in here? And so everyone has a story, don't they? Did you not find that one of the outcomes of the life crisis is you tended to take some other things less seriously because of it? That's where it comes from. That's where real balance comes from. And if you miss that opportunity in the life crisis, you've missed a big part of the gift that comes from those times. Is how do you use it to stabilize you? And so people that have been through life crises should look up and look at their calendars and say, does this calendar reflect the seriousness of what I've been through? Is it a reflection of my ability to say this is important and this is not important? Am I using that crisis appropriately for my own well-being and the well-being of all of those that count on me? Just something to think about. One of the things they have to learn is how to manage that arrogance. And one of your jobs as the HR professional the trainer, whatever it is to help them do that. How do you get underneath them to help them do that? Remember the story I told you about the executives that were having meltdowns and temper tantrums? Do you know what she did? She went to him. This is a technique. She went to him and said, you know, you are so good at what you do. But unfortunately, when you behave in the way you've been behaving, people can't see how good you are. All they can see are the temper tantrums. It really changed his behavior for a couple months. Those are the basics. Now let me just take it and summarize those for a moment. Managing fear, managing confusion, managing arrogance. Those are the basic fundamentals of strong leadership. If you can get yourself and your leaders at 100% in each of those categories, you can't do it better. It doesn't exist. But that's the aspiration, is that I'm going to manage my fear, everybody's confusion, my confusion, and my arrogance all at the same time. Then you are powerful. And I want to start the power games by talking about true power. That's power. It's not enough in a 45-minute presentation to explain why that's the case. But when you see it in operation, when you see authentic people that know who they are, and you see their flexibility, and you see them managing their fear in tough times, you see true power. The two elements that go into every power game are my positional power and my personal power. And if you think of that list that we just went through as personal power, it's your ability to stay relaxed under stress. It is your ability to control your rhythm, your ability to engage. But the more you put the pressure on, those abilities get challenged, don't they? So a really powerful person can do that at the highest level, with the highest level of pressure, where the economy is falling down around them. Okay? So personal power, I put on a y-axis, up and down. You remember this from algebra? And then positional power, which is the other one, which is your rank. It might be who you know. It might be how well you work your network. All those things are part of your positional power. The two dynamics together create your power when you walk into a power game. They also create the power of the other two people that you might have to intervene with, okay? But your personal power and your positional power affect your ability to affect things around you. But what you're looking for is, in any power game, what kind of personal power does a person bring into it, and what kind of positional power? Here's the trick, though, and this is to be remembered. Personal power is where all the games get better. It isn't about positional power. If you want to focus your time and your energy on helping people, you've got to get them out of victim mode. You've got to move them toward their personal power potential. In other words, say that fast. You've got to move that Y up. You have to convince them that they too have a role here. Even if the other person is really bad, they need to focus on what they can do to be more personally powerful, and they need to focus on the organization, not themselves.